Happy Sunday, everyone. Happy Sunday, you all. Welcome back to Karen Vibes, reading for the mature audience. Hope you're all having an awesome Sunday. I'm here eating some. You guys remember what they call these? Donkey jawbone. That's what they call them here. So these are like some thin, sweet and tough crackers. Very tough. I guess that's why they call it donkey jawbone. But it's nice to munch on. So how you all doing? Hope you all okay. And you all had a productive week and looking for another productive week ahead. So welcome back to Karen Vibes, reading for the mature audience. And we're going to continue reading our book, Flowers in the Attic, written by Virginia Andrews and narrated by moi, Karen Weir. So we're just going to get straight into it. Welcome. Thank you all for joining me. Alright, so we're still at chapter 11. So we're still continue reading chapter 11. So we're just going to pick up right where we left off. And those who were not following, you can always go on my page, Karen Vibes. So that's KarenVibes with an exclamation sign on YouTube. And you can just pick up where I started or where I left off. I don't think I can eat these while I'm reading because they're so tough. I'm gonna be distracted, I guess. Need to go change this band-aid. I was trying to put on a coil on the mosquito destroyer stand this morning and slit my finger. I didn't know that thing was so sharp. Anyhow, when I finish, I'll change it because I had to dip my hand in some water. Anyway, folks, let's get into it. Our twins were more like 3-year-olds. So we had stopped at the sentence where they said, the last sentence was, their thin little arms wrapped tightly about my neck. I was loved, very loved and needed. So that's where we had stopped. So we're just going to continue. Our twins were more like 3-year-olds than children of 5. Not in the way they talked, but in the way they rubbed their eyes with small fists and pouted when they were denied anything. And the way they had of holding their breath until they turned magneto and forced you to give them what they wanted. I was much more susceptible to this kind of ploy than Chris, who reasoned it was impossible for anyone to suffocate themselves in such a way. Still, to see them purple was a terrifying sight. Next time they behave like that, he told me in private, I want you to ignore them, even if you have to go into the bathroom and lock the door. And believe me, they won't die. That was exactly what they forced me to do, and they didn't die. That was the last time they pulled that stunt as a way to keep from eating food they didn't like. And they didn't like anything or hardly anything. Carrie had the sway back posture of all little girls, a protruding in front in a strong arc, and she adored skipping around the room, holding out her skirts so her ruffled panties showed. Lace ruffled panties were the only kind she would wear. And if they had little roses made of ribbons, or embroidered, don't know why I can't pronounce some of these words properly. Sorry, folks. Or or embroidered somewhere in front. You had to see them at least a dozen times a day and comment on how charming she looked in her panties. I don't know if it's because of my slightly stung sometimes. I tend not to pronounce these words properly, and that's so embarrassing. Anyway, of course, Corey wore briefs like Chris, and he was very proud of this. Somewhere lurking in his memory were the diapers, not too long ago discarded. If he had a temporal bladder, Carrie was the one who got diarrhea. If she ate one tiny bit of any fruit but citrus, sorry, let me read this back. Carrie was the one who got diarrhea. If she ate one tiny bit of any fruit but citrus. I actually hated the days when peaches and grapes were brought up to us. For dear Carrie adored green grapes without seeds, and peaches and apples, and all three had the same effect, believe me. When fruit came in the door, I blanched, knowing who would have to wash the ruffled, lacy panties. Unless I moved fast as lightning, running with Carrie under my arm and plopping her down in the nick of time. Chris' laughter would ring out when I didn't make it, or Carrie didn't make it, or Carrie did make it. He kept that blue vase handy for when Corey had to go. He had to let loose immediately. And whoa, if a girl was in the bathroom with the door locked. More than once he had wet his short pants and then he'd bury his face in my lap. So ashamed. Carrie was never ashamed. My fault for being slow. Kathy, when do we get to go outside? He whispered after one accident. As soon as Mommy says we can. Why doesn't Mommy say we can? There is an old man downstairs who doesn't know we're up here, and we have to wait until he likes Mommy again, enough to accept us. Who is this old man? Our grandfather. Is he like the grandmother? Yes, I'm afraid he is. Why doesn't he like us? He doesn't like us because he hasn't got any good sense. I think he's sick in the head as well as in his heart. Does Mommy still like us? No, that was a question to keep me awake at night. More than weeks had passed when a Sunday came where Mommy didn't show up during the day. It hurt not having her with us. When we knew she had the day off from school and we knew she was somewhere in this very house. I lay flat on my stomach on the floor where it was cooler, reading Jude the Obscure. Chris was up in the attic searching for new reading material, and the twins were crawling around, pushing tiny cars and trucks. The day dragged on into evening before finally the door opened and Mommy came gliding into her room, wearing tennis shoes with white shorts and a white top with a sailor collar trimmed in red and blue braid. And an anchor design. Her face was rosy tan from being outdoors. She looked so vibrantly healthy, so unbelievably happy, while we wilted and felt half sick from the oppressive heat of this room. Wow. Sailing clothes. Oh, I knew them. That's what she'd been doing. I stared at her resentfully. longing for my skin to be tanned by the sun, with my legs as healthy colored as hers. Her hair was wind-blown and it flattered her well, making her seem almost 10 times more beautiful, earthy, sexy. And she was almost old, almost 40. Really? You want to tell me someone in being 40 is old? Girl, very obviously, very obviously, this afternoon had given her more pleasure than any day since her father died. Since our father died. Sorry about that. Let me read this back. Very obviously, this afternoon had given her more pleasure than any day since our father died, and it was almost 5 o'clock. Dinner was served at 7 downstairs. That meant she would only have very little time to spend with us before she had to leave before she had to leave for her own rooms, where she could bathe, then change into something more suitable for the meal. I laid aside my book and turned over to sit up. I was hurting and I wanted to hurt her too. "Where have you been?" I demanded in an ugly tone. What right did she have to be enjoying herself when we were locked away and kept from doing the useful things that was our right? I would never have a summer when I was 12 again, nor would Chris enjoy his 14th summer or the twins their 5th. The ugly, accusing tone of my voice paled her radiance. She blanched and her lips quivered, and perhaps she regretted bringing us a big wall calendar so we could know when it was Saturday or Sunday. The calendar was filled with our big red X to mark off our imprisoned days, our hot, lonely, suspenseful, hurting days. She fell into a chair and crossed her lovely legs, picking up a magazine to fan herself. "I'm sorry to have kept you waiting," she said, with a loving smile in my direction. "I wanted to stop by and visit this morning, but my father demanded all of my attention, and I'd made plans for this afternoon. Though I did not cut them short so I could spend some time with my children before dinner." Though she didn't look sweaty, she raised a sleeveless arm and fanned her armpit as though this room was more than she could bear. "I've been sailing, Kathy," she said. "My brothers taught me how to sail when I was 9, and then, when your father came here to live, I taught him how. We used to spend a lot of time on the lake. Sailing is almost like flying. Wonderful, it's really wonderful." She ended lamely, realizing her fun had stolen our fun. "Sailing? Sailing?" I just about screamed. "Why weren't you downstairs telling the grandfather about us? How long do you intend to keep us locked up here? Forever?" Her blue eyes skipped nervously about the room. She appeared on the verge of getting up from the chair. She appeared on the verge of getting up from the chair we seldom used, for we saved it especially for her, her throne. Maybe she would have gone then and there if Chris hadn't come down from the attic with his arms loaded down with encyclopedias, so old they didn't include television or jet planes. "Kathy, don't shout at our mother," he scolded. "Hi, Mommy. Boy, do you look great. I love that sailing outfit you've got on." He put down his load of books on the dressing table he used for a desk, then strolled over to put his arms around her. I felt betrayed. Not only by Mommy but by my brother. The summer was almost over and we hadn't done anything yet. Been on a picnic or had we hadn't done anything yet. Been on a picnic or had a swim, or walked in the woods, even seen a boat or put on a bathing suit to wade in a backyard pool. Mommy, Mommy, I cried, jumping to my feet and ready to do battle for our freedoms. I think it's time you told your father about us. I'm sick of living in this one room, playing in the attic. I want our twins out in the fresh air and sunshine. And I want out too. I want to go sailing if the grandfather has forgiven you for marrying daddy. Then why can't he accept us? Are we so ugly, so terrible, so stupid? He'd be ashamed to claim us as his own kin, really? She shoved Chris away from her, then sank weakly down into the chair she'd just abandoned and leaned forward and bowed her face down into her hands, intuitively. I guess she was going to reveal some truth she'd previously held back. I called to Corey and Kerry and told them to sit down at my sides so I could put my arms about each. And Chris, though I thought he would stay close by Mummy's side, came to sit on the bed next to Corey. We were again, as we'd been before, small, fledgling birds sitting on a clothesline waiting for a strong gust of wind to blow us asunder. Kathy, Christopher, she began, her head still bowed, though her hands were in her laps nervously working. I haven't been completely honest with you, as if I hadn't guessed that already. Will you be staying for dinner with us tonight? I asked, for some reason wanting to put off the full truth. Thank you for asking me. I'd like to stay, but I've made plans for this evening. And this was our day, our time to be with her until dark. And yesterday she had spent only half an hour with us. The letter, she murmured, and her head lifted and shadows darkened the blue of her eyes into green. The letter my mother wrote when we were still in Gladstone. That letter invited us to live here. I didn't tell you that my father wrote a short note on the bottom. Yes, Mommy, go on, I urged. Whatever you have to tell us, we can take it. Our mother was a poised woman, cool and self-possessed. But there was one thing she could never control, and that was her hands. Always they betrayed her emotions. One willful, capricious hand rose to flutter near her throat, fingering there, seeking some string of pearls to twist and untwist. And since she wore no jewelry, her hands just endlessly sought. S-O-U-G-H-T, sought. Her fingers on the hand kept in her lap restlessly, rasped together as if to cleanse themselves. She began. Your grandmother, she wrote the letter, signed it, but at the end, my father added this note. She hesitated, closing her eyes, waited a second or two, and then opened them to glance at us again. Your grandfather wrote, he was glad your father was dead. He wrote the evil and corrupt always get what they deserve. He wrote the only good thing about my marriage was it hadn't created any devil's issue. Oh my goodness. Once I would have asked, what was that? Now I knew. Devil's issue was the same as devil's spawn. Something evil, rotten, born to be bad. I sat on the bed with my arms about the twins and looked at Chris, be much like Daddy, who must be much like Daddy had been at his age. And a vision flashed of my father in his white tennis clothes, standing tall, proud, golden hair, and bronze skinned. Eve was dark, crooked, crouched and small. It didn't stand tall, it didn't stand straight and smile at you with clear blue eyes that never lied. My mother made the plans for your concealment on a page of the letter my father didn't read. She concluded lamely. Her face flushed. Was our father considered evil and corrupt only because he married his half-niece? Asked Chris in the same controlled, cool voice our mother had used. Is that the only thing he ever did wrong? Yes, yes, she cried, happy that he, her beloved, understood. Your father in all his life committed one single unforgivable sin, and that was to fall in love with me. The law forbids marriage between an uncle and niece, even those who are only half related. Please don't condemn us. I explained how it was with us. Of us all, your father was the best. She faltered, on the verge of tears, and pleaded with her eyes, and I knew what was coming next. What is evil? And what is corrupt in the eyes of the beholder? She rushed on, eager to make us see her way. Your grandfather could find these faults in an angel. He is like the kind of man who expects perfection from everyone in his family. And he is far from perfect. But just try and tell him that and he would smack you down. She swallowed nervously, then appearing near sick with what she had to say. Christopher, I thought once we were there. I thought once we were here and I could tell him about you and how you were the most brilliant boy in your class and always have been a straight A student. I thought when he saw Kathy and knew of her great talent for dancing, I thought surely those two things alone would win him over without him even seeing the twins. How beautiful they are and how sweet, and who knows what talent they have waiting to be developed. I thought foolishly, hopefully, that he could easily yield and say he'd made a mistake in believing our marriage was so wrong. Mummy, I said weakly, almost half crying myself. You make it sound as if you're never going to tell him. He's never going to like us no matter how pretty the twins are, or how smart Chris is, or how good I can dance. None of it is going to make any difference to him. He still hates us and think of us as devil's issue. Won't he? Doesn't he? She got up and came to us and fell on her knees again and tried to wrap us all in her embrace. Haven't I told you before he hasn't got long to live? He gasps for breath every time he exerts himself in the least way. And if he doesn't die soon, I'll find a way to tell him about you. I swear I will. Just have patience. Be understanding. What fun you lose now, I'll make up for later on 1,000-fold. Her teary eyes were beseeching. Please, please, for me, because you love me and I love you, keep on having patience. It won't be long. It can't be long. And I'll do what I can to make your lives as enjoyable as possible. And think of the riches we'll have one day. Think of it, how rich we'll be. It's all right, Mommy, said Chris, drawing her into his embrace, just as our father would. What you ask isn't too much. Not when we have so much to gain. Yes, Mommy. Yes, Mommy said eagerly. Just a short while more to sacrifice, and a little more patience. And all this, and all that is sweet and good in life will be yours. Well, I can tell you, this mother, she's sweet mouth. She really sweet mouth. You know, some people with sweet mouth. This mother is sweet mouth. What was what was there left for me to say? How could I protest? Already we'd sacrificed over 3 weeks. What was a few more days or weeks or even another month? At the end of the rainbow waited the pot of gold. That's what they always say. But rainbows were made of faint and fragile gossamer, and gold weighed a ton. And since the world began, gold was a reason to do most anything. Yep. And there we are. That's the end of chapter 11. You know, reading the book, it's like I'm actually in the room, locked up with these children, and just standing one side and seeing what they're going through, and you're just there just watching and see how it will turn out. Yeah, really a sad book. You know, that's why they always say, one of the things, they say reading will take you to places you may never go. It opens your imagination, you know. So we're finished chapter 11, and when we come back, we'll be at chapter 12. And chapter 12, to make a garden grow. That's the heading for chapter 12. So we'll be back, folks. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. You all continue having a happy, happy, happy Sunday. And have a productive week again. I'll see you in the week. I'll be back on in the week. So you take care. Thank you. Remember to go on my page, Karen Vibes. Reading for the mature audience. That's KREN VIBES with an exclamation sign on YouTube. And you can go on and enjoy what I've been reading if you haven't been following me. So thank you. Remember to like, remember to share, remember to subscribe. Alright folks, so enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be back in short order. Bye.